Hello to our friends across the world who are watching live. Thank you for joining us. My name is Maryam. And my name is Nivaal. We're twin activists, journalists, and filmmakers based in Toronto, Canada. We're also the co-executive directors of The World with M&R, our nonprofit which uses activism, storytelling, and development to take action for climate justice, inclusivity, and gender equality. We're very excited to be your moderators today. Welcome to the second intergenerational dialogue, part of the In Solidarity with Girls series, curated and hosted by UNGAI, the United Nations Girls Education Initiative. This series comes to life in such a needed time in response to the current global pandemic and in the urgency to build a cohesive and intergenerational education response to ensure that no one is left behind. At the start of the global crisis, UNGAI began working with the UK government to coordinate this series of intergenerational dialogues. The dialogue series would engage with members of the Platform for Girls' Education and other high-level leaders to facilitate the inclusion of youth voices in the global policy response to COVID-19 and meaningfully amplify the experiences and stories of those who are digitally disconnected and unable to share their voices and activism. The theme of today's dialogue is rebuilding the new normal in education post-COVID-19. This is a time of serious disruption to the education of youth and children everywhere, but with systems disruption, there is opportunity, and we want to talk about how we want to rebuild our education systems better for girls after this pandemic. We are honored to be joined by Anne-Birgitte Albrectsen, CEO of Plan International, who will engage with our young activists, Beatrice, Pooja, Maryjacob, Tolani, and Faith. Before we start the dialogue, we want to ask all of you to introduce yourselves with your name, country, organization / activism, and share one thing that you want to take from today's dialogue. Let's start with Beatrice.
Hi, I'm Beatrice from Kenya. I'm a teenage mom. I'm a girl advocate under Girl Advocacy Alliance, sponsored by Plan International. And from our dialogue today, I want to learn how we will rebuild a new normal after the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. How about Tolani? Do you want to go next?
My name is Tolani, and I'm from Nigeria. I'm currently with voluntary service overseas as a youth advocate. Voluntary service overseas is involved in education, health, and livelihood projects. At the end of this meeting, I hope to have learned more from others how to achieve the new normal post-COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pooja, how about let's hear from you next?
Namaste, I am Pooja Verma from Nepal. I am president of Adolescents Cause Group of Network at Nepalganj Sub-Metropolitan City, and I am youth advocate for Girls Advocacy Alliance project with Plan International. And from today's dialogue, I hope to get new ideas from youth of different countries, which will be so beneficial to take further action plans in my community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Maryjacob, how about let's hear from you?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Maryjacob. I'm a Nigerian and I live in Nigeria. I'm the national coordinator of Activista Nigeria. Activista is the Action Aids Youth Network, global youth network. And in Activista Nigeria, we have founded the Whispers team that are working really on feminism issues for the girl child education in Nigeria. And at the end of this dialogue, I hope to finish up on the basis with new ideas and a passionate network that could build something sustainable for girls post-COVID-19. Thank you very much for having me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Faith, how about you?
Hello, I'm Faith from Liberia, a head of Girls Alliance for Future Leadership, a part of the Girls Advocacy Alliance Liberia. Today, I hope to learn and share experience with others, the road in the fight against this pandemic, and I hope we can accelerate our impact as young girls.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And last but not least, AB.
Yeah, hi, I'm AB. I'm from Denmark, currently living in England, and I'm the CEO of Plan International. I hope our dialogue today will inspire everybody developing content for the new digital educational future to make that content truly feminist so we can level the playing ground for all girls in the future.
Thank you so much. Definitely. Thank you all for your intros. And to our audience watching, we encourage you all to join this dialogue via Twitter. Throughout this chat, you can share your vision of a new normal in education post-COVID-19 by tagging Angai in your posts, and we want to hear from you. So make sure you send in your tweets, and we'll get started with our question and answer session. So our first question is, how is a lack of access to phones and internet connectivity affecting young women in your community/networks during the pandemic? Let's start with you, Maryjacob. What are your thoughts on this?
All right, thank you, Maryam, Nivaal. Before the pandemic, it was an exciting time for us because we had the access to work with young girls in their spaces, in their comfort zones, in their classrooms. But following the pandemic, it has become something almost impossible for us to do. And it has been threatening because most of the young girls we work with are young girls in the rural areas and in communities. And we try, because we believe that as young as possible, young girls should be introduced to feminism and should seek to close the gaps that exist in their spaces. So some of these girls are quite young. So some of the issues we're having is that we are having issues of smartphones. Most of these girls are young, and I mean, you don't expect people living in poverty to have access to smartphones. I mean, it's expensive in our space and in our society. And then we have infrastructure troubles. Some of these people have access to smartphones, but because they're not very privileged, the telecommunications cannot build the right mass and the right infrastructures to give them access to the internet. And then let's talk about data. Like, I don't know, but in my part of the world, data is crazily expensive. So how do we expect girls who are trying to survive to have to be able to afford data? So the data cost is totally expensive, and then this is causing a breach of information because the world has gone digital. And then if these girls don't have access to the digital world, that means they're out of the world. That means they're not part of the society right now. They don't have access to information. They don't have access to what is happening in the world. They don't know how to move from the world. And then we talk about the digital space of learning and all of that. I mean, you don't expect people who don't even have access and can provide data for themselves. They can't even eat well, and you expect them to be in the digital space learning? How do they go about that? So it's been a very terrible time for us. And we are unable to reach out to some of these girls that we are working with and we were working with before the pandemic. Because since we cannot access the internet, or they can access the internet, we cannot access them. So we don't know how they are doing. We don't know if they're fine. We don't know what is happening in their lives. And it's causing a bigger gap that was existing before the pandemic. So yes, basically this is what we are facing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. That was very insightful. And is there anything you'd like to add, Beatrice?
Yeah, hi again. In addition to what Maryjacob has said, right now in Kenya, there's a program going, the Kenya Youth Employment Program, and it is being applied online. So girls in the rural areas are missing out because they can't access phones with internet connectivity. And even if they have the phones, the bundles are not affordable at all. They are very expensive, and they also have their own priorities. Like I'm a teenage mom, I have to buy my baby milk, and I also want to buy bundles. So I'll prioritize milk and leave out the bundles. So I'll miss so much on the employment program. And then there is also the digital learning. Right now, children are being given lessons online. And because I cannot afford a phone, I cannot even afford bundles. So by the time people go back to school, I'm far behind. And those in urban setups are far much ahead of me. So you find that my education, I cannot get good grades. I cannot compete. I cannot equally compete with others. Me as a young mom and as a mom in a rural setup. And then you find that this has also brought a lot of peer influence. Now that my friends have the phones and I don't have the phone, so I want to be like my friends, I will end up being vulnerable and may even get into sexually harassment. I may sell my body or start even get pregnant again. Already my one baby is a problem, and then I'll be adding another baby, and I may even get STIs, and it is now becoming a problem. And just to add on top of what I've said, I may be having a phone, I may be having the money to buy the internet, but my parents see that the internet is not secure. It is not secure for me as a young mom, so they may tell me that no, you can't access the internet. So I'll miss a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's so important to hear all of your insights. So thank you so much, Beatrice. And we would like to ask Tolani, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Okay, thank you. To add to what Maryjacob and Beatrice have said, there are some communities that are currently supporting, there are some NGOs that are currently supporting the communities, especially the young women and girls, in terms of livelihood. They provide for them food, some provide for them food. But because the young girls and the young women in the communities don't have access to internet and phone, able to afford so many things, get access to those provisions. And also there may be issues of abuse, maybe rape or maltreatment, domestic abuse, whatsoever. But because these girls don't have access to phones and internet, they may not be able to reach out to help, nobody to talk to, because they don't have access to phones and internet like other girls in the cities do. And also because they may be feeling disconnected from the world. Girls may be going through depressions right now that we don't really know. We can't really assess them because they don't have access to internet. They don't have access to phones. And also financial support is not there for them because they cannot even use any financial accessibility on the phones and internet that are ongoing, especially as palliatives during this COVID-19 period. So some of these things are the problems they are facing because they don't have access to phones and internet connectivity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that as well. And AB, we'd love to hear from you next on your thoughts on the comments provided by our activists.
Yeah, I think what strikes me the most, of course, is that in many parts of the world and the communications around COVID-19, there's an assumption in so many places that everybody can just move online. And there are so many millions and millions of girls and young women that are completely excluded from that. And that's not very much part of the discussion. And it's been wonderful to hear you highlight the real challenges that lie in that digital gap. I think the other thing that strikes me is that a lot of the work that the activists do require a lot of engagement with those that we're trying to serve and mobilize and energize, but also those that we're trying to convince, and those whose behaviors we want to change so that we can have a more feminist future. And we're not reaching them right now. So there's a huge standstill in the impact that we can have of our activism because of the lack of engagement. But I wanted to also maybe reflect a little bit on what organizations like PLAN can do right now. And we're obviously advocating everything we can with governments to make sure that the barrier to digital access, whether that's making sure that there's connectivity in the most deprived communities, whether the providers lower the costs or even provide education at zero rate, so that once you're on an education program that you don't actually have to pay for the data at that time. We're also advocating that government should make sure that the education that is provided is free. But I think what we've seen more and more of our staff and colleagues and partners do is actually resort to low-tech solutions, not smartphone solutions, but just getting radios into the hands of girls in communities, making sure that there's active educational content on the radio that girls can access. And a small radio costs almost nothing and can be active and good and for many, many years. So we're sort of moving between high-tech solutions and very low-tech solutions just to make sure that as many girls as possible can access and continue their educations.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's great to hear more about like what Plan is doing to ensure girls access to not only like online learning, but like these low tech solutions like you mentioned. So that's really great to hear. And that brings us to our third question, which is for our young advocates. We have heard what Plan is doing and it's incredible. And now we want to know, is your youth-led network managing to work around these issues of connectivity, and how are they managing to do that? So we'd love to hear from Maryjacob first.
Okay, thank you, Abby. That was totally insightful. I mean, we didn't know until you hear. So, since the pandemic and the lockdown, like I earlier mentioned, it's been a tough time. And then this period, we've done a bit more than usual, which is costing also a bit more than usual, or maybe much more than a bit. For the girls we work with that have access to the internet and to smartphones, we set up the online forum. We have a space on Telegram, a safe space on Telegram that is strictly for girls, young girls. And no matter as young as you are, we're working with you, or even if you are getting new on board, we welcome everybody to the space. And then we have activities that are lined up on daily basis to keep these girls engaged and keep tabs with them and make sure they are safe. And then for the girls in the rural areas that we cannot reach out to, there was a site in hearing AV mention the use of little radios. So yeah, it's part of what we are exploring down here. It's not really as it's a bit expensive. I mean, for a family that cannot afford basic meals, there's so many families that cannot afford like $10 per day, and then you can expect them to buy a radio for $5 for a girl child who they believe is a second citizen. So this also becomes a problem. So we've been working on radio. We've been working on radio, creating content, using jingles to reach out to girls, and we've been working on community radios. There's so many radio stations that are in these communities, so that they don't have to seek a high connectivity with their radios to get connections to the radio station. So we just use the ones that are very close to them, and it's been working out very well. Also, we've been working with the teachers that were in the schools that were like our eyes in the school. So these teachers are still reaching out to these children because most of them are in small communities, so they could still keep tabs. And we're still looking at doing more like providing these radios, the basics if we can and when we can. But for now, this is basically what we're doing. And we are also trying to help girls, those that are in the digital space right now.
Yeah.
The digital space is also as unsafe as the open space we have. So, and these girls are moving to the digital space. So we're taking our time to give lectures on digital literacy and teach our girls how to navigate in the digital space and how to create a safe space, how to report abuse on the social media apps, how to do some of these little things. So basically, these are the basic things we are doing right now. Thank you very much, Maryam and Nivaal.
Yeah, thank you. That was really great to hear your insights and the work that you're doing to make sure that girls have access to different programming and content that's going to help them through this time. So that's really amazing. And Tolani, would you be able to share your thoughts first, and then we'll move to Faith after?
Yes, VSO Nigeria currently they are partnering with 2 states in Nigeria, Enugu and Kano states. Enugu and Kano states they've already organized online schools for both primary and secondary school students. And because these community students cannot participate, they don't even have radios in their houses. You know, just like Maryjacob has observed, they don't have radios in their houses, most of them. So they're working to provide radio transmitters in such a way that community students will be able to attend, they will be able to participate in all of the classes that are going on the radio stations. And then by the time they resume, they'll be up to date with their peers, even in the cities, post-COVID-19. So that is what VSO is currently doing about the connectivity issue, apart from other palliatives they're doing. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your insight. Our next question is for you, AB. How will Plan commit to working with young people as partners in the COVID-19 response and recovery?
So engagement with girls in every aspect of our work is part of our DNA. So we're totally committed to girls' participation in program design, in campaign design, in monitoring how well we're doing. I think in one of our strongest shows of true participation, we launched a few years ago the global campaign Girls Get Equal, which is the world's largest campaign led by girls, designed by girls, to make sure that they are equally heard, seen, and valued. But we're not perfect, and we need to, particularly at times of emergency response and quick pivoting and reallocation of funds, we need to make sure that we are truly engaging with girls in that process so that the design is best. And so we're trying to hold ourselves to account, and we're trying to hold governments to account for doing the same, because time and time again we've seen that girls are invisible to governments, whether that's central government or local government, or to teachers, or to certainly school leaders. They are not consulted on what's needed. And you know, my biggest worry right now is that we will be planning to get, you know, children at large and girls back to school, but nobody will actually have listened and heard what they have gone through during this period to make sure that when they come back to school, their needs, their experiences, their traumas are addressed as part of the education system. So that would be a huge gap, and also a missed opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And that's actually a great transition to our next question to our panelists, which is, what are some measures that you believe governments and other stakeholders should take to get girls to return to school? Pooja, let's start with you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I believe that government and stakeholders should take 3 concrete steps to get girls back to school. Firstly, the government have to provide a scholarship to girls to rejoin their school, and governments have to provide stationery and dresses that will be free of cost, so that parents don't have to worry about send their daughters again at school, and they feel safe too at school. At school also, girls should be rewarded on the basis of their performance they did on the school. They should do more good and better in their education by the rewarded, uh, or the prized by the some gifts and stationaries. They will be motivated. And the second thing they can do is to maintain menstrual hygiene facilities at school. This means having water in the toilets, pads, dustbin for disposals, and painkillers, so that and girls need space to rest while in pain, as well as friendly teachers need to. So such types of tips or preventive measures can take, government to take. And lastly, even after the COVID-19 pandemic settles down, the schools have to take preventive measures like maintaining social distancing at classrooms, proper hand washing services, use of sanitizers and masks, regular physical checkup by health worker at school, so that girl feels safe, more safe at school also. And adolescents friendly girls school must be adopted at every country. So this must have written here. I want to say that preventive measures this should government should take. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those are all such great ideas. And we'd love to hear from Tolani next. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
To add to what she has said, government should provide scholarship for the girls especially, because most households will have lost their means of livelihood during this pandemic. And if they provide scholarships, it will encourage the girls to go back to schools, because some parents might even want the boys to go and then allow the girls to stay back at home because they don't have enough funds. But if the governments and NGOs provide scholarship opportunities, I'm sure they will be able to go. Also, like other NGOs can do what VSO is doing because they are very involved in social inclusion and gender. So they can help to bring girls back to the classes. You know, NGOs are very closer to the community girls, even than the government. So they can help bring these girls back to school. And also, teachers should be well enlightened, or they should be trained to be more gender sensitive and not gender biased. They should allow girls to take more leadership roles in classes. And also, they should allow them to respond more so that they will feel comfortable being in the school environment. And also, there may be awards and recognitions for girls that do well in school. Then STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics should be up the girls and give them practical ways by which they can catch up with latest technology so that they can go to wherever they want to go to. And the last I want to talk about is awareness. Awareness is very important, especially in communities where they have, ideologies of male superiority. They believe that girls end up in the kitchen, and but it's so funny, but some people believe that even in the country, in the kitchen, boys are supposed to go to school. But girls can actually contribute so well to the economic growth of this nation and the world at large because they are intuitive. So if they're allowed to be well educated, if the parents are given awareness, contact in classes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And AB, what are your thoughts on like what governments can do during this time and stakeholders as well?
So I think we've heard some really good suggestions from Pooja and Tolani, and I would simply add that any education response plan at this moment that doesn't realize that often the only meal that girls got, or the most nutritious meal that girls got during the day, was the one they got at school, and now they're going without that and they have to replace that. Any government that doesn't realize that many girls have the only access they have to sanitary towels, etc., they have at school. Governments that don't and that has to be replaced. Governments that don't understand that NGOs are providing through the schooling system often both comprehensive sexuality education and in some countries actual sexual and reproductive health services to young girls, and that needs to be replaced. They will fail in terms of their response plans. So we need to make sure that they listen to girls, understand what girls are not getting right now, and then the additional burden of care work and other things that have come with this particular crisis. And therefore, when we go back, that they lower the cost of education, ideally make it absolutely free, that they use incentives for parents, schools, etc., to make sure that they bring the girls back to school and mobilize communities. And then a thought that I just had this moment, I don't know, but in my part of the world, everybody's talking about COVID-19 trackers. You know, we should all be tracked and we should know who's had the disease, who hasn't, where it is. I mean, the real tracker we need right now is to make sure that we track which girls were in school and are likely to fall out or have not come back to school, and that we reach out actively, and governments and teachers and others do that really, really well. So an education tracker, kids and girls out of school tracker, is even more important probably than anything else for our future prosperity.
Yeah, what a great idea as well. And I think that a lot of the discussions that we've had so far are great recommendations that all governments and stakeholders can use to take action as well. And just to finish this off, we'd like to ask Maryjacob to share any final thoughts that you have.
Thank you, Avi. I love the idea of the tracker. Yeah. So I was going to say that government should be accountable at this time. Government should step up at their game. At this period of the lockdown, there are a lot more the government should do if they want to have our, if we want to have our girls safe at the end of the lockdown and having them back to school. So if at this period, uh, so many governments are resorting to palliatives. So in this period of palliatives, you're trying to help your citizens, you're trying to support your citizens. Is it gender sensitive? Are we looking out for the goals? Are we making sure that there's this ideology that we understand that we have girls out there in our decision making and in our packaging of the palliative, whatever we're given, is it gender sensitive? Then after the lockdown, after the pandemic, and we are trying to get back on track, I think government should start instilling policies that are going to they're going to guide the process of girls coming back to school and all of that. One of the policies I was thinking about, I was thinking loud, that so many girls this period might come back pregnant. Mm-hmm. And in so many societies, we know that we don't give space to pregnant girls to be in schools. So we don't care who the father of the child is, but if you're pregnant, this is not your space. So I think this is time for government to instill those things. There should be a policy that allows girls to have free and equal access to education regardless. So if a girl is pregnant and after the pandemic, she should come back to school. She should have access to be in school. It's a right, it's a basic right. So I think government should instill that policy and let it be held on to. Another thing is, I thought about, Abby mentioned it also, a totally free education for basic schools. So you have people, girls in the primary and secondary, you know it's not going to cost you anything to have your daughters in school. So why keep them back at home? So if we can have, if government could instill the policies of free and equal education for every citizen and every child, in the basic at least, then I don't think we would have so much problem like we're having. We're going to have even girls that were not in school before the pandemic are going to return to school because it's free. And when we look at the tertiary institution, a lot of governments say it's totally expensive. They can't keep up to it if they make it totally free. What about giving a pass scholarship? What about giving 50% off for girls? So it makes it cheaper for girls to actually come to school. What about instilling policies that makes it that as a girl you could attend schools to the very last year you were in the college, to the very last year you were in university, and you could pay off your bills before you go for before you get your certificate or something. But at least just have access to school. Yes. And I don't know, maybe because I'm coming from the ActionAid perspective, I am I'm always hitting on the part of policies. Because when we have policies, we could have campaigns, we could build campaigns, we could hold government accountable. And we know that you have this policies and you should keep to your words and you should do these things right. Okay, yeah. So sorry, just briefly, on the care plan that Avi mentioned, this is part of what we're doing right now. And I feel that it's something the government should give attention to also. I mean, these girls are having to do almost everything, every chore at home. Most of the domestic workers can't be working for you because of the lockdown, because of the pandemic. They should be with their families. So we practically turn our daughters, our wives into our domestic workers. And then even children that have access to the internet, they can't even use the internet. Why? Because they are busy doing chores while their brothers are using the internet. So we're also bridging the gaps in our homes and in our lives. So where can stakeholders come in? I think there are so many girls that are working in the fields. I am one voice, but I always want to believe that when I speak for 1,001 girls that are out there that I work with, I work for, and that are part of my life, and all the activists nationwide. So I think this is time that stakeholders, NGOs, Plan, I love what Plan is doing, but I think it's time that we should step up. We should give more grants, more access, grants without rigorous processes. This are for young people, then we should make it accessible. And then give the young people in the fields access to do more work with the young people in the fields. I think I left my time, so I'm sorry, Maryam and Nivaal. Thank you very much. But I mean, these are basically things I think, would help. Thank you.
Yeah, and we can see that you're so passionate about this as well, and your suggestions are really awesome. And we have connected with Faith again, so we would love to hear your perspective as well, Faith, if you could add anything in addition to all the great ideas that have been shared so far.
Thank you, Mom. We are still managing to continue with our activism with the connectivity issue in Liberia. The consolidated effort of young people in the fight against the coronavirus is a key part on our side. Our work focuses on awareness, visualizing capacity, our network of volunteers, online engagement, multimedia campaign, information sharing, online platforms, to source of sanitary pad for young women to stay in school this pandemic during this unusual time in Liberia. So what we are doing online messages, we are doing online awareness, online campaign, our focus on awareness. So in this pandemic, that we can help to secure the girls that are out there in Liberia. And we are still trying, like I said, with the internet, we are managing with the internet connectivity, even though with low internet connectivity, but with our nurse, we are here on the internet doing online awareness campaign, utilizing our online engagement, posting, and we are doing a crowdfunding source of sanitary prize for young girls so that they can be safe and healthy during this unusual time in Liberia.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. And that brings us to our next question, which is, we know that the pandemic has made existing gender inequalities worse, and we've brought this up throughout this discussion as well. But how can we use this crisis and the attention that is on girls' education right now as an opportunity to accelerate change? Beatrice, would you be able to begin?
Okay, thank you for giving me this chance. We can use this crisis and the attention that is on girls' education right now as an opportunity to accelerate change by having discussions with our local radios, because many of our girls cannot access internet, yes, but they can access the local radios, and on these local radios we can talk about topics that have always been put aside, topics like mental health, reproductive health rights, and and how to stay safe during this pandemic, so that after the pandemic, we will have that few number that we've always wanted, that few number with pregnancies, few teenage moms. That is what we will achieve after the pandemic. And then we should be involving the young people in decision making. Right now in Kenya, there are a lot of committees, there are a lot of platforms that are discussing on issues of how we get a new normal after the pandemic. We should include the youths, not only to sit in the committees, but we should also hear their voices and at least try to listen to what they're saying and put some of what they're saying into action. And then we should also develop programs that involve our parents, because parents are the number one drivers to change. We were being taught about referral systems and how to use them to report the GBV cases. Right now, it is a chance for us to prove that these referral systems are really functioning. They are really working. Now that every single person is at home, we need to test our referral system. Can we report our cases? Can our cases be solved? Can our problems be heard? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. We can hear you great now. That's amazing. And Faith, if you're ready to go, we can hear from you next.
Our focus should be in mitigating assessments of challenges that are facing during the education of girls, such as teenage pregnancy, sexual and gender violence, and abuse that may be prevalent and not recorded of the statistics during this lockdown period. Our attention should also be driven to the issue of awareness and engaging our young girls and stakeholders alike to ensure that they have safe space and safe advancement during this pandemic in Liberia.
Yeah, perfect. And that's amazing. And it's really always great to hear the insights that you girls have. And that's awesome. Like, thank you for all of your incredible thoughts and your ideas that you're sharing as we near the end of this conversation. But AB, is there anything you would like to add to these comments that have been made by our wonderful activists?
Thank you, and I'm really struck by what Beatrice said about using this time where teachers and school leaders and protection staff and support staff are actually not in the office and possibly can't provide or do the work that they would normally do, to really think about the new normal, and to have teachers think about how will they enforce a zero tolerance to sexual violence in schools? How will they support the mental trauma that many girls and boys will have experienced during this time of lockdown? How do we poke them and prompt them to use this time to really think about the new normal? And maybe a last thought from me, one of my obsessions is the gender bias and the harmful stereotypes that is deeply embedded in almost every school book, textbook, teaching material around the world. And now that so many governments will be thinking about new content ready for radio, TV, or digital platforms, there has never been a better opportunity when we're changing content to really look at it through a gender lens and absolutely wipe out every single harmful gender stereotype in our textbooks and materials. And then to make education future-proof, to make sure that we are driving the right kind of content that will allow girls to take up some of the themes and issues across science and technology and maths, and that they may not have had an opportunity to do before. So there are so many opportunities, even in these desperate times, that governments need to seize, and we need to help them think about it and shine a light on it.
Definitely. And I guess that brings us beautifully to our last question for all of our panelists, which is, what is your vision for a new normal in education after COVID-19? And let's start with Beatrice for this.
Okay, my vision for a new normal. My vision for a new normal is a world. Is a world where a girl is not just a committee member, but a decision maker in the committee.
That's amazing. Beautiful. And can we have Maryjacob go next?
Okay, it's a world where education advocates and feminists will have limited work to do, since girls are going to have access to as much education as they want, just because they are humans and they are alive without a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tolani, what about you?
Yeah, it's to see a world where all girls go to school and are well educated, and also to see a world where all girls have access to latest technologies and they can use it as well, as much as boys can. Thank you very much.
Amazing. And Faith, how about you?
My vision for a new normal in post-COVID educational, I hope we can harness the power of technology for educational advancement and increase the learning opportunity for children, most especially girls in the rural setting in Liberia.
A new normal for me would be a world where girls are safe to learn, free from violence.
Yeah, amazing.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Faith.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll give the final word to AB on this. Is there one sentence which you could use to describe your vision for a new normal?
The new normal needs to be one where what Beatrice, Maryjacob, Faith, Pooja, and Tolani has just said becomes reality, not what a 53-year-old woman from the global north feels that education should be about. It should really be about what you want and what you need for your realities.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your thoughts and for sharing all of your amazing ideas for a new normal throughout this discussion today. We had a few technical difficulties, but everything got sorted out in the end, and we were able to communicate. So that's amazing. And we look forward to working together to ensure that we achieve our visions of a new normal in education post-COVID-19 as well. More than ever, we need organizations like Plan International to make commitments to partner with and support youth-led networks in the COVID-19 education response and recovery. So thank you so much, AV, for joining us today. We look forward to continuing to work with Plan International in an intergenerational gendered education response to COVID-19. And thank you so much to our panelists, Beatrice, Pooja, Maryjacob, Tolani, and Faith, for sharing your voices today. It is young activists and advocates like yourselves who represent youth-led and youth-serving networks that are critical partners in this education response. And following this dialogue, we will work to develop key recommendations inspired by this dialogue and look forward to working with Plan and getting their support and other key stakeholders as well to disseminate and work together as well. So yeah, thank you to all of you who joined us live today, and this will be posted afterwards as well, so you can also gain insights from this conversation. Standing in solidarity with you and girls everywhere. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thank you for your wonderful moderation as well, Maryam and Nivaal. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much.